Call the planning and zoning meeting to order. Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. John Matthews.
Here.
Terry Bukowski.
Here.
Mark Denny.
Here.
Alex Tomorrow.
Here.
Will Smith, absent. Rocky Hempel.
Here.
Tom Dials.
Here.
Jeff Spink.
Here.
Steve Rosenthal, myself, is here. I have 8 members present. Do I have a motion on last month's minutes?
So moved.
Libraries.
Second.
Is Rocky. Why did I put that there? John, you seconded?
Yes.
A motion on the floor and a second to approve the minutes from the February meeting. Any discussion? A roll call vote. John Matthews?
Yes.
Terry Bukowski?
Yes.
Mark Denny?
Yes.
Alex Tomorrow?
Yes.
Rocky Hempel?
Yes.
Tom Dials?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 8-0. Secretary's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We have a number of items on the agenda that have been continued to the April meeting, or perhaps beyond. We also have one item on the consent agenda, so when you approve the agenda, you will of course be approving that item. That is for a plat. We have 3 items which will be heard this evening. All 3 of these items are public hearing items. And then finally, we have scheduled, assuming this will work out with the majority of you, I'm hopeful that it will, for Wednesday, March 24th, a joint work session with the Board of County Commissioners to begin at 5 p.m. in this room about the Leavenworth County Comprehensive Plan goal setting. You don't have to let me know this evening. If you can just let me know within the next couple days whether or not that will work for you, I would appreciate it. Try to get it on the schedule. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay. On the comprehensive plan that we're at our next meeting, what are we discussing about the comprehensive? It's all approved. Are we reviewing it, or are we going to make changes in it?
Not exactly reviewing it. Do you remember in the very final chapter is the implementation chapter? And there are a number of goals and strategies. There are many, many goals and strategies, and some of those things are going to be farther out. They're going to take years to accomplish, but there are other items that we're hopeful we can get accomplished in the next 12 to 18 months or so. We don't want to tackle this whole thing all at once because I think that's setting us up for failure, but if each year we can pick 2 or 3 goals that are doable and we can march towards those and we can accomplish them a little at a time, I think we'll be in great shape. So that is the purpose of that meeting.
Okay, so we're going to be discussing any changes we want to make in the comprehensive plan. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not the intention of this meeting.
Okay.
If you have anything that you feel is substantial and we need to talk about it, then certainly we can bring it up. But the intention is to pick out some of those goals and strategies that we can begin to develop policy for and we can begin to accomplish.
Oh, okay.
So we're looking at setting priorities.
Correct.
Setting priorities. Okay. That's
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. There is a provision in state statute that requires the comprehensive plan to be reviewed every year by the Planning Commission.
Right.
And updated.
But that isn't this, is it?
No, that is not this.
Okay. David?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good evening. To follow up to Commissioner Dial's comment, I would like to tell you the Board of County Commissioners is requesting this joint work session. It is not pro forma. It's not routine. This board really wants your input on how to proceed to accomplish the goal that Commissioner Dial's referenced, which is the annual review of the comprehensive plan for Leavenworth County. By state law, that is supposed to be reviewed every year. Much like speeding laws, it's more observed in the breach than anything else. This commission really would like to have it reviewed annually. It believes that this planning commission has the skill set to assist in doing that, to accomplish that. And what I'd like to suggest to you is the purpose of this meeting, I think, would be a kickoff, and that is to begin to schedule priorities as Crystal referenced, and also to basically brainstorm on how to do the first annual review and perhaps annual reviews after that. What I would like to tell you is this is not some, again, pro-forma meeting. The commission really wants this planning commission's input and assistance in the annual review. It anticipates that this commission will do the lion's share of the work on the annual review based upon its commitment and skill set. So I would just like to pass that on to you, that that's really the purpose of the meeting. It's not a meet and greet. It's not to sit down and look out the window and wait till 6 o'clock gets there. I believe there's accomplished substantive goals.
It's and it will be broadcast live, right? Since it is a public meeting,
Work
correct?
sessions typically are not, but
Well, I would imagine the press would demand that, but
Yeah.
we can.
Well, it is a public meeting, correct?
It's a public meeting.
Right. So I didn't know if you were going to have it live or not. Was that the intent? Or
I'll certainly speak with our county administrator. BOCC work sessions are typically not broadcast. They are public meetings. People can come to them. They're not typically broadcast. I will speak with the county administrator and I will give an answer.
so are we going to be in a setting like this, or
Yes, we'll be in this room.
in this room, and will we? Is it our meeting? We'll be up here, or are they going to be up here? Not that it matters. It's just so we all got room to discuss
I
it.
think we'll just find spaces for everyone.
Yes, sir. David?
Mr. Chairman, I can't speak for the board, but it's a preamble to your meeting. I would suggest, Ross, if you suggest that you folks sit up there and invite the commissioners to sit here. The whole purpose is to get you all together in one room.
Right. Well, like I say, it doesn't matter, but we'll be together, not together.
However,
Yeah, we're not going to be across the table from each other anyway. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else of staff before we go on? Okay. Do I have anything on the agenda? A motion on the agenda? One item on the consent, and the rest of the three of them we're going to hear.
So moved.
Second.
Tom, you seconded?
I did, sir.
We have a motion on the floor with a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Roll call vote. John Matthews?
Yes.
Dave Bukowski?
Yes.
Mark Danny?
Yes.
Alex Tomorrow?
Yes.
Rocky Hempel?
Yes.
Tom Dials?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 8-0. And on with the first item. It's case number DEV 20-013, consideration of, oh no, we're not doing that one. I'm sorry. That was on the consent agenda. I'm sorry. Case number DEV 2158, consideration application special use permit for Pulamus Mechanic and Automotive Repair Service located on Lot 7, Hidden Meadows Subdivision, Phase 1 in Leavenworth County, Kansas. Request submitted by Adrian Pulamus, also known as 17405 Gateway Street. It does require a public hearing. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. This is case number DEV-20-158. This is a special use permit request for Pulamus Automotive. Mr. Pulamus is requesting to operate an automotive repair shop out of his shop located on his property, which is approximately 6.5 acres. This property is located within a subdivision. I'll go ahead and pull that up. Pardon me. So it's located within this subdivision here. This internal Gatewood Street is obviously a local subdivision road. The applicant is proposing to repair heavy equipment such as semi-trailers, agricultural equipment, and such in his barn. Staff has taken a look at this, a pretty close look at this. Currently, the barn has a dirt floor. He has not made any significant improvements to the building. It is our understanding that he is not currently operating there. He currently operates, he goes to the site and he helps people wherever they may be. He is requesting to be able to come, to have those vehicles come to him. Staff has a number of concerns, primarily that this is located within the Hidden Meadow subdivision. The surrounding area is planned to be developed with mixed residential uses in the future land use map. So obviously this is a residential area. That is obviously a residential street. That is a local subdivision road. It is not meant to have this kind of heavy equipment on it. The property it's an unpaved roadway. Planning and zoning is concerned by the level of traffic and size of vehicles with this business. And neighbors are likely to be affected by the nuisance of large vehicles approaching the property as customers drop off their vehicles at the site. That being said, I will go through really quickly and talk about what Mr. Palomas is requesting. He is requesting to repair semi-trucks and grain trailers. He anticipates that the vast majority of those would weigh over 10,000 pounds, between 16 and 17,000 pounds. The applicant's requesting to work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The structure currently utilized for the repairs, like I said, has a dirt floor. He states that he will clean up any soil which is contaminated via any spills via a contamination kit. Public Works recommends that all traffic to the business be routed only from K92 to 175th Street in order to limit traffic on routes not designated for heavy vehicles. Kansas Department of Transportation did not have any further information or requests for this particular special use permit. Given the concerns that staff has just outlined, we do recommend denial of the special use permit. Mr. Palomas is here and will answer any questions that you may have, as will we.
Okay. Any questions of staff?
Yeah. Is that on a cul-de-sac?
Yes.
And how many acres is that?
His property is 6.5 acres.
6.5 acres. And do you know where he would be working on them? Is he down on the south end or the north end? There's two buildings shown.
The barn itself.
Right here.
Back there. Okay, south barn. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
Just a consideration, keep in mind there's multiple businesses exactly like this throughout the county that are doing mechanical right now. Something to consider. They are, actually.
Okay. Anything else? Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item upon recognition will give your name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. Will the applicant please come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Aiden Polimas. I live at 17405 Gatewood Street, Leavenworth, Kansas.
Okay. You want to tell anything about their denial?
And Jordan came out and viewed the property probably a month and a half ago. And when he was there, he seen the barn, and I spoke with him about how the barn was not finished. It was something I built a few years ago just for storage. I've since started this business and would like to be able to use it, but the barn will not be used with a dirt floor, without doors on it, without electricity. Those things will be completed before work begins in that barn. It'll have a concrete floorboard. It'll have electricity. Electricity and electricity and water are run to the building, but there's not a single light hanging in it. So, and there's no doors on it. There's no securement. Those things will all be completed before I start work. And I told him that. I don't know if it didn't make it into the notes or what. As far as road impact, an unladen semi correctly weighs 16,000, 17,000 pounds. My truck weighs more than that, my service truck that I drive every day. And I, on average, go in and out 4 times a day. The majority of my business will continue to be mobile repair, going to broken things. But in the instance that I get a larger project, a 5-day or a 10-day project, instead of having to leave and return to the building or to the house twice a day, that vehicle could come to the barn, be put inside, and be worked on right there at the house for as long as it takes, which would actually reduce traffic and wear and tear on that road.
All right. Anything else to add?
No, I don't really think so.
Anybody here have any questions of the applicant?
I got a question for you. To avoid the discrepancy with the subdivision down there by that 460 and that purple reddish 7, have you ever considered cutting a driveway in there?
I
If that's
did.
even possible.
I asked the county for permission to put a driveway in off of Michael's Road when we purchased the property because it would have been, there's actually about halfway between the house and the barn, there's a pretty good ravine. And I asked the county for permission to add an entrance on the south side. I was told that because I was less than 10 acres, I was not allowed to have two entrances to the property. And thus I pushed a road through the ravine from the house.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Are you the only employee?
Myself and my wife, I'm the only one on the books at the point. She just left her job to help me out. So I don't have any interest or intent in having any other employees at this point in time. If it ever gets to that time, this will not be the facility for that.
Crystal, are there specific remediation measures that could be taken that would bring this into something that you could grant a special use permit for?
So the biggest concern, Commissioner, is the roadway. And I bring up the status of the barn not to say that the barn isn't in shape to work on vehicles, but to show that Mr. Polymus, while he has invested substantially in his property, he doesn't have a business that's up and running in there now. Currently, that barn is unfinished. He's not operating out of it, just so that the commission is aware of that. Public Works did not have any recommendations about upgrading that roadway. It's just a county local subdivision roadway. It's just not meant for heavy traffic.
Understand, we're talking about vehicles that are 8 to 10 tons empty coming in there. The zoning regulations prohibit a second driveway because he's less than 10 acres.
So that, I don't know when Mr. Polymus purchased this property. I can tell you that regulation does not exist anymore. I can tell you that I do not know if a secondary entrance would be granted off of Michael's Road under the current regulations, specifically because of site distance and such, and because there is an existing entrance there. However, that's something that was not revisited with Public Works.
Are there specific recommendations that staff could make to Mr. Polymus to say, let's defer action on requesting a special use permit? Here are things that might mitigate the deficiencies we see in the property as it stands that he could work to. Apparently, he understands that having a dirt floor that you spill oils and stuff on is not going to cut.
Right, and the building is not the issue. I fully expect that he will invest in the building and bring it up to the standard that it's needed. That was just...
Yeah, I spent a lot of time working with 50-ton plus vehicles that spill a lot of oil and everything, so I understand how that works on dirt. But has the staff provided him a specific set of remediation measures that he could implement and come back with a special use permit?
I believe if the Planning Commission wants to grant the special use permit, I would ask the Planning Commission to set forward those requirements.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that perhaps that's the next step, is if he's serious about establishing a business here, then the staff should answer his request with, okay, here, on a first glance, here are the 6 or 8 things that you need to get taken care of, and then refile your special use permit, and we'll come out and evaluate.
Well, we can do that as we get into it, and that we have a right to table it, of course, and that's probably what you're going to say. We're going to table it until we can get up with exactly what they would do. That if we're going to make them come off of Michael's Road, we're going to make sure first thing that Public Works would agree to that, and if there is, looks like it's pretty curvy through there, so sight distance, and especially big vehicles like those, might not be a possibility.
Certainly all of it would be an exception.
Right. That was something they all have to come up with.
And if No guarantees, just here's a better way to go at it.
Yes, sir.
The picture does not show it well, but there is about 100 feet of topography that is rock cliff and straight up. With placement of the barn now, I would have to demolish the rest of that hill in order to get a road off of Michaels.
So you don't think road off of Michaels is a possibility?
At this point, with the information I was given 6 years ago, that I could not have a second access, and building the road to where it was and placing the barn where it stands now, it would be an incredibly expensive endeavor. And for what it's worth, I am more than willing to try and comply in any way possible. But this is, I ask you to keep in mind that this is a business that is a fresh startup. It is right at a year old right now. And the purpose of asking for the special use permit before having that building done, concrete floored lights in it, is because I don't know that I can stomach the investment into the building to then be told, no, you have to go rent a building, purchase a building somewhere else, that sort of thing. It would probably put me out of business.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant before we continue? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will now hear from anyone wishing to speak in favor of this request. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor?
My name is Jerry Moore. I live at 28104 175th Street. I'm at the intersection of Gatewood and 175th. And I've been there 22 years. And there's an awful lot of these little agricultural-based businesses scattered through the county. And this would be a good one to endorse. The impact of the road was a concern of mine. It is a small residential road. In talking through this with Aiden, I'm comfortable with the fact that he's bringing in smaller agricultural trucks that are going to be empty. We're not bringing in semis that broke down on the highway that are 80,000 pounds. And knowing him a couple of years, I feel comfortable with that. If the businesses could be granted based on these contingencies, I would ask that there be something added to eliminate untitled or unregistered vehicles on the property. The history going down Michaels of the Wiley salvage yard, we're finally starting to get cleaned up, but not completely. On the backside of his property is a salvage business that's unlicensed. It's got 15 to 25 vehicles behind a barn that somebody's living in. And I know this isn't the venue to clean that up, but the county needs to address that. But you've got somebody here trying to do it by the books. And as a neighbor, I would endorse this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this request? In opposition, please remember it's 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes. Is there any additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
The public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Are any questions or comments, commissioners?
Crystal, I can't see on here where the county engineer said that road would not support this kind of traffic.
I think no, the county engineer did not come right out and say that this road will not support this kind of traffic. This is an issue that we run into on a fairly regular basis where people want to operate businesses in the residential rural part of the county. And I'm certainly supportive of that. And I appreciate very much that Mr. Polhemus came in. And I will be honest, he's one of the few who came in and asked to get a special use permit before he began operating. And I appreciate that very, very much. But this is it's a subdivision on a subdivision road. Staff's opinion is that repair shops do not belong in subdivisions on internal residential streets. I believe that staff has a history of recommending denial on these types of uses. As Mr. DeMoro said, we do have some others out in the county. Some of those I've recommended approval on because they weren't located in an area like this. So much of this recommendation is based solely on the location of the property being in a rural subdivision, on a rural subdivision roadway.
This doesn't have an HOA or anything like that. This is not.
No.
And none of the other neighbors have commented or complained or.
Not to date. Whether or not neighbors comment or complain, though, is not a factor that staff considers. Again, this is in a residential subdivision. The Planning Commission obviously always has the right to overrule staff's recommendation, and if you direct staff to provide conditions, staff will do so.
I just hate to see a man who's trying to do a business and trying to make a living not be able to do it. It appears to me he's got enough land and his barn and everything's on the back side of the property. He's got one neighbor that's came in and spoke for him. This is pretty big land sites around here. There's plenty of space between. I personally wouldn't have a problem, as long as certain requirements were made, to get the barn up and stuff, but that's some of the stuff we can talk about ourselves.
Crystal, if he worked for a general contractor in town or Johnson County, wherever, and because to me, 16 to 17,000 pound trailer isn't that big of a trailer.
That's the vehicle. That doesn't account for, if this vehicle can drive itself in, that's one thing. Many of these will be broken, and they will be brought in using tow trucks.
But what's the impact if a tow truck is driving the thing in? The weight distribution is still going to be the same, isn't it?
Well, I guess, so my question would be is, if he worked for a contractor and drove one of these big trucks, and he drove it home every night and parked it on his property, would he be allowed to do that? So he would be allowed to take his work truck, bring it home every night, and then drive it to work every morning.
Yes.
What were you going to say a minute ago, Rocky?
Well, I have basically three questions. The first one I want to know is Gatewood Street, is that a county road or is that a subdivision road?
It's a county roadway. Well, it is a subdivision road, but it is
a county
roadway.
road?
It's a county maintained roadway.
Okay, and also at 175th and Gatewood, and I went out and visited the site, but for some reason this one got by me. Is that intersection established enough that you can go ahead and get the vehicles in that you need? Could you come up? I'd like.
It is a tight corner, as Jerry said, and there was an incident. The modules that are directly to the east of me, when they were brought down there, they did drag through the corner into Jerry's ditch. But I bought a machine to aid in clearing trees about 2 months ago, and it was delivered on a lowboy trailer, long wheelbase truck. Farmer friend of mine from up on McLeod brought it over for me, and he had no issue getting it in there. And if I may, with regards to tow trucks, I own a mobile repair business. If there is one down on the side of the road, I make way more money going to fix it on the side of the road. If I have a long-term project, like an engine overhaul or something of that nature, a fill-in work, that's when they come in. And my service truck that I drive in and out every day weighs 17,500 pounds.
I just wanted to make sure that the type of vehicles you'll be servicing, that intersection is okay with it.
So far, yes. Unless they keep growing, I think we'll be okay. Or that intersection is tight, but yes, I think we'll get in and out just fine. And I've already talked to Jerry, and if we have any issues, we'll take it right.
Right, any other
That's all
questions or comments? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
did close the public portion, didn't I?
Yeah.
I thought I did.
Yes, you did.
Questions or comments or a motion?
I have a question. Under the staff comments here, first one says that the property is located in a mixed residential use area.
The future
That-
land use plan calls for this to be mixed use.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The future land use plan calls it for it to be mixed use. It's currently in rural residential zoning.
Okay. I just wanted to need to be rezoned to allow mixed use, not,
No.
period, not just mixed residential use. Okay, thank you.
The future land use, what is it right now?
It's rural residential.
RR5.
RR5 allow businesses? I'm confused.
Businesses are allowed in rural residential zoning with special use permits, yes.
RR5, okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve case number DEB.
No, we can't approve it because we have no conditions.
I'm going
If
to give the
you want to
conditions.
continue it, we can continue it and ask for some guiding on that because we don't have any conditions to prove it on. So we either deny it or we can table it till next month and get some conditions.
Oh, we can't add the conditions now, then on it.
I wouldn't feel comfortable adding conditions now without any guidance.
Well, yeah, there would be conditions that would have to be completed.
Yeah.
That's what I would go with. So either
Right.
that or we table it.
I would, my concern is the road, and I would really like to see Public Works take a very, very good look at it. What is 175th?
It's a county local roadway.
It's a gravel roadway.
Yes.
Too. Yeah, they're both gravel roadways. And I don't know how many of you guys have lived on gravel roadways, but they can get pretty nasty, especially in the wintertime.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to make sure, that is my concern, and I think that's what staff's concern is too, and it being a subdivision. And I'd want to make sure that if improvements were needed for that road to make it safe, that they would need to be done, which probably would not be feasible, but I don't know that.
There would be no complaints if you want to pay the 175th.
Actually, that's
Well,
the best part of the road.
Could be a possibility, that's what I'm saying. I can't imagine going down with trucks like that on gravel road, the ones I've been on in the past, and what I used to live on too. So, is there any plans to bring, I imagine not Gatewood, but 175th Chip and Seal? I know they're trying to do a lot of them, but
No,
That
both.
supports semi-traffic above Bronson construction currently.
I did think of one question. How far is it from the highway to Gatewood? Pardon?
Just over a mile.
Okay, that's what I was thinking when I drove it. But
from Tonganoxie Road,
no,
Springdale.
92.
92.
To the north.
92. And that's what I thought it was, about a mile.
Oh, there's 92.
So, Mr. Chairman, what you're saying is that if we want to, given the opportunity to get this approved, we table it?
Yeah, we need to get conditions, hours, we still want to put limitations on probably a number of vehicles and like we do on every special use permit, if we want to continue on with it, or we can deny it. That'd be part of it.
Mr. Chairman, I may move that we table case number DEV 20-185, special use permit, to allow time for the applicant to finish work on his building and get feedback from the county as far as the road and conditions.
I don't think he has to finish the building necessarily, but he needs to, I think he needs to get with Public Works.
Public Works has reviewed this. Their recommendation was that all traffic come from K92. That Public Works, there is an email in here that says, let's see here.
Yeah, it's in there where it says come down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right, but the county has reported no weight restricted culverts along said route. We have no comments regarding the vehicle types proposed. And then to check with the state on said application, which we have done. I don't believe that Public Works has a specific policy that they can use to either say, yes, we approve this, or no, we don't approve this. I can tell you that staff works very closely with Public Works. Public Works did have concerns about this. However, when it came down to the things that Public Works could review, such as the culverts and such, there were not any concerns about that. So as far as working with Public Works, I can certainly go back to them and we can have this conversation again. I don't believe Public Works is going to say that the road needs to be paved. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, their comments were pretty non-committal. It just said 1 to 2 vehicles a week and 7 to 7, and take traffic down from 92 to 175 to Gatewood, or traffic from Eisenhower down. I mean, they didn't. There's no yay or nay on that.
No, Public Works doesn't make recommendations on planning cases. Again, the recommendation of denial is based upon the road being a county local road, both of those roadways, and this being in a rural residential subdivision. I would ask that if the Planning Commission wants to table this for conditions, that the Planning Commission gives specific conditions that the Planning Commission believes would be good for this particular use.
So if the county has said that the depth of dirt above the culverts and everything is good, we don't really need to address that, right?
Well, if Public Works is not going to do any more than what they said, then I don't think we need to go there. You're right.
Lay that to bed.
I don't think we need to go there. I think we need to make sure, hours are one thing, traffic, noise, everything that we always cover on every special use permit needs to be in there. I don't know if there needs to be anything additional.
Well, if we table it, and one of the concerns is the dirt floor, and as Thomas pointed out, oil on dirt, and my WOPEC experience with that.
Well, that would be one requirement. It has to be.
That's what I'm saying. There may be some requirements for
Yeah.
environmental reasons that
Non-registered vehicles on site.
Right. No unregistered vehicles.
Commissioner, are these the conditions that you are proposing?
Yeah, sounds that way. I mean, everybody okay?
Sure.
So, no unregistered vehicles. To finish the floor of the barn before operation begins.
Right.
Number of vehicles allowed on site.
How many?
Well, he's probably talking about maybe only 2 at a time at most, I would say.
I asked for 6, and the reason I did that was based on a friend of mine who's been doing this a lot longer than I had. I don't think I'll ever need that many, but he said you need to have 2 that are waiting to be picked up, 2 that are waiting to get worked on, and 2 that are waiting on parts. That's probably geared a little bit more towards a full-time, open all the time shop. But I have run into instances in the short time that I've been in business where somebody wants you to fix something, they drop it off, you fix it, you call them and tell them it's done, they say, what's the bill? I can't afford that. Call me back when you can. And if I'm limited to 2 vehicles, then I've got 1 and 2 that are done, and I can't bring any more home until they come up with some money, close me down with that.
Well, you can put in there what he wants. We can always change it if we don't like it. So.
Well, now, if you have 6 vehicles on site, would they be back there around the barn?
They would all be obscured by trees in the barn.
The man has 6 acres, and we have houses right up the road here that got 15 vehicles in their driveway.
Well,
so, I mean.
You make it right.
If they're in the back of the property. Okay.
Yeah.
6?
Yes.
That's what he said.
That sounds fantastic.
Sounds like a lot to me, but
Can we get some sort of consensus from them? Because I'd hate to table this again. So.
Well, we can change it at the time if we don't like any of the conditions. We do that occasionally.
Also, we'll need a time frame for how long the special use permit is good for.
I asked for 10 years because my daddy told me always shoot for the moon. I understand that you guys typically like to grant a much shorter term.
We probably would, since it is starting up, and we do have concerns about the road.
Right.
Those concerns are still not gone.
No, I understand that. So, I mean, at this point, I am very happy with whatever I can get. If I can get 5 years, if I can get 3 years, I can very much make my investment in the building pay for itself, and then I'm not out anything should it not be approved.
Well, the best thing is you get with staff and let them, you and them, put something together that we hope will work, and then we'll either approve all of it, approve some of it, or none of it.
Commissioners, sorry. Mr.
Go ahead, if you want. I think one thing to keep in mind on the time frame is I've been watching some of the things go through. We can always enforce the conditions at any time, and I think the goal is 10 years isn't out of line.
The one we're reviewing next was the first one, the use permit was for 5 years. That's applying for a continuation.
We did one the other day, it went for 10.
Was that a new one that was brought?
Yes.
Continuation.
One tonight.
Was it a continuation?
Tonight's a continuation.
It was one for heating and cooling. I
Yeah.
think the commissioner went 10.
Yeah, but was that a new one or a continuation?
That was
Well,
a
it
new
was
special
a
use
new-
permit, Commissioner.
That one was a new one, but they had a condition of building the barn. I mean, we didn't do that.
The commissioners did.
You made it for 1 year, and they had to have the barn done by September, and I think they changed it. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're not talking about that one. We're just talking about this one.
Okay.
Commissioners, our standard is 5 years. Is
Yeah,
anybody
on the
opposed to that?
Well, apparently he's not opposed to it, so I mean, I don't see why we would. If he's okay with it, I don't know why we wouldn't be okay with it.
Sounds fantastic.
If you got 5 years and it's working and no one's complaining, it's going to
Yeah,
go.
then we can go longer. Yeah.
And we established
Chairman,
6 vehicles, correct?
One other
I have 6
provision that we
vehicles.
might want to consider is the one we saw in a later action tonight, that none of the drainage can connect to a septic system. It all has to be an emptyable sump.
Well, I don't think you'd have a septic. I mean, yeah, you need to put that in.
Yeah, that's a standard condition.
That's a
Okay,
standard.
if that's standard, then that needs to be.
Right, yeah, that would be a standard one. Okay, are we good?
Hours of operation?
Well, you get with him. He knows his hour of operations. I mean,
He said 7 to 7.
But is the commission agreeable to that?
well, if not, we'll change it when we hear it.
Is
We've
that-
done that before, Crystal.
Right, I just, since the commission is giving me conditions, I think right now is a good time to set what the commission is going to agree to instead of doing this again.
Well, we might agree to it, we might not, but, you know, I mean, 7 to 7 is basic, but
7 days a week?
If you're doing repair and someone calls you out, you need to be able to go out.
I would imagine 7 days a week, yeah. If he's working on repairing, 7 days a week, I would think. I mean, where the barn is, it's not like a lot of people are going to hear anything from it. It's pretty much away from everything. We still have to have a motion, and I want to verify the DEV number. I think you misspoke. You said it was 185, and I think that was just a misspeak. But on my paper over here, I have it 20-132. It is 158. Is that correct?
It's 2158, yes, Commissioner?
Okay, I just wanted to verify that was correct.
21,158 or 21,158?
2158.
Yeah.
20-158.
Right. So I thought we had a motion on the table to table it.
Well, get a motion on the floor to table it until next month's meeting, correct?
Yeah, to get planning and zoning.
Okay.
Opportunity to work with the applicant.
Come up with requirements. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor and a second to table case number DEV 20-158 until our April meeting, which
April
I don't know what
14th.
date that will be, but
April 14th.
April 14th meeting. Is there any further discussion? Have a roll call vote. John Matthews.
Yes.
Terry Bukowski.
Yes.
Mark Denny.
Yes.
Alex DeMauro.
Yes.
Archie Hempel.
Yes.
Tom Dials.
Yes.
Jeff Spink.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 8-0. The table. So we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Case number DEV 21-003, consideration application for a special use permit for guest auto repair, a automotive repair service located on a tract of land in northwest quarter of Section 5, Township 8 South, Range 21 East of the 6 p.m., Leavenworth County, Kansas. Request submitted by Chris Gast, also known as 22578 Millwood Road, requires a public hearing. Public comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before us, we have case number DEV 21-003. As was stated, this is a renewal of a special use permit. His initial special use permit was issued in 2016, and this is for his auto service station and repair shop, CG Auto and Diesel. This is a full-time business that is currently operating on the property. When the applicant first came before the commission in 2016, 2015, and 2016, it was scheduled to be a part-time business. He has now expanded to be a full-time employment endeavor. The applicant in this submission has also submitted a site plan with plans to expand the existing building to accommodate a second bay and a couple of additional things, an office space and a bathroom, I believe. The property owner, the applicant is the property owner and is the only mechanic working at the shop. His wife is a part owner in the business as well, but she's the accountant and bookkeeper. The applicant estimates that on average there is currently 10 customer trips to the property each week, and then with 10 parts delivery vehicles per week as well. Those are in fact passenger vehicles, retrofitted trucks, pickup trucks, and the like from local businesses. The staff has the following concerns regarding the business. The applicant has stated his desire and plans to expand the footprint of the shop to enable him to increase his workload and thus traffic to the property and numbers of vehicles on site. And in addition, the applicant has not abided by one of the conditions set forth in the initial SUP, which stated that there is to be no more than 3 vehicles left on property overnight outside of his shop. That has not been the case. Our staff recommends approval of this application with some conditions, but the applicant is here to answer any questions you may have, as will we.
Okay, can you put the restrictions up? Recommendations, I should say. Okay, any questions of staff?
I have one. When a special use permit has been granted and the company or whatever has been given conditions and they violate those conditions, What's the normal procedure for a renewal of that application?
I wouldn't say there is specifically a normal procedure. What we typically do is we reach out to the applicant, we tell them that they're not abiding by the terms of their special use permit, and typically they go ahead and abide by the terms of their special use permit. Otherwise, we can go through the same process that we use to grant a special use permit to terminate a special use permit prior to the expiration date of the permit. We did not do that in this case. I would like to specifically indicate to let the Planning Commission know that Mr. Gast contacted staff, I want to say probably 3 years ago, about operating from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. The planning director at the time determined that that was not a substantial change and did grant that. So going from a part-time operation to a full-time operation was not going against the conditions of the special use permit, because that was granted at the staff level. The number of vehicles at the site is definitely against the conditions of the special use permit. I will be honest that staff had not received complaints from neighbors during that time, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Staff drives by there on a somewhat regular basis. I believe our our code enforcement officer knew that there was a special use permit there, so he didn't, until we got the application for the renewal, it didn't draw very much attention that there were more vehicles there, because we didn't have any complaints. Again, we knew there was a special use permit. However, after we got the application and we went through the original conditions and such, that is when it became very obvious that the applicant was operating outside the confines of his conditions. Staff doesn't have any intention of this case being denied. Staff thinks, obviously, that there need to be strict conditions on this, and that they need to be abided by. If the applicant is unable to abide by those conditions, which we will keep an eye on them, then the special use permit needs to be revoked.
Can you put up the map of it?
I'm assuming you want the property, Commissioner?
Yeah, the one that you got in the packet.
This property here on the north side of the road.
Can you enlarge that any more than that? Thank you.
There's a lot more than 6 vehicles there.
Some of those are personal vehicles that are all tagged. So,
how many people are working this business?
There is the one, Mr. Gast, and then his wife works as an accountant, bookkeeper, and I do not believe works in the shop.
And part of these are personal vehicles?
Correct.
Mr. Guest indicates that a number of these are personal vehicles, yes.
Crystal,
15 vehicles, as I count that.
Yes.
you mentioned
Okay.
non-licensed, in condition 10, we use the term junk vehicles. Junk to me is a subjective term. I have a 1996 Dodge Dakota. I think it's fantastic. I drive it all the time. My 16-year-old son calls it junk.
Are you using it for parts, Commissioner?
Well, no. But I don't know what the intention is there, but if we need to change that to non-licensed vehicles, perhaps, just because, again, to me, junk is a subjective word, and especially this type of business. I don't know, it's just...
Actually, junk vehicle is a legal term.
Is it? Okay.
The state of Kansas has a categorization of junk vehicles.
Good enough.
To include my 1972 850 Fiat Spider.
That sounds a lot cooler than mine.
We're not. A junk vehicle fits the category of it's no longer operable and could be licensed.
Okay. As long as it's a legal term
It's
that
a
can
legal
be, okay, that answers my question.
Any other questions of staff?
Why is the permit for 3 years instead of 5 or 10?
Again, because the applicant has not abided by the terms of a special use permit.
Usually renewals are 5.
You are correct. Usually people abide by the terms of their special use permit.
Well, he did mention that he's looking at moving to the city with his operation, and I'm hoping that in the 3-year time, that's what's going to happen. Definitely has outgrown where he's at.
Commissioner, I want to be clear that when he first applied for this 5 years ago, yes, that is what he stated.
Right.
He has stated to staff that he has no intentions of moving.
I think it's time. His business is good. It's a good business, and he's probably a great mechanic, and I think it's probably time. It's like a lot of the businesses around, they need to eventually move where their businesses are supposed to be, not out in rural areas or in subdivisions. Anyway, any other questions of staff? Okay. Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item, upon recognition, will give your name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. Will the applicant please come forward?
Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Guest. I live at 22578 Millwood Road. I would like to just add that in my original special use permit, it did say 3 vehicles to be repaired overnight. This was taken during the day. I'm not going to stand here and tell you guys that all of those vehicles left before it was nighttime. But the 2 vehicles that are directly to the south of my house, that's my wife's car, my service truck. The 5 cars on the other side of the driveway. The one at the very south side, that's a car trailer that I own. The black one's my personal pickup. That's my grocery getter, basically. Hauls my camper. The other 3 are customer vehicles. Usually when I park cars on that side of the privacy fence, it's because they're finished. They're going home that day, that evening. It's an 8-foot tall privacy fence. You really can't see that mess when you drive by. I would also like to add that nobody ever came to my property and asked me what I own, what I don't own, which cars are finished, any of that kind of stuff. I would have gladly entertained their time. They would have scheduled an appointment to come out. I mean, they could have just showed up, really. I mean, I'm there all day, every day. So I'm not going to say I've never broke a 3-car rule. I mean, it's hard to make a living, especially when the bridge that separates our little community just down the street was closed for 2 years. I mean, that definitely had an impact on moving to town. I mean, my wife and I explored different shops in town, way out of our budget. I mean, we just can't afford that at this time. Easton is always an option. We've considered it. There's another mechanic there that supposedly has plans on leaving. If that ever happens, I'm definitely going to try to seize the opportunity to take over that building and make it my own. But for right now, I'm just kind of there with my hands tied. But I will say that I own 3 trucks. My wife's got a car. I got a camper. I got 4 tractors because my dad and I farm 100 acres. We do have some equipment to go along with that. Sometimes it gets parked in my place so we can work on it after hours. That kind of thing.
Okay. Anything else to add? Put the conditions back up.
I would like to say that I did request a 10-year permit to begin with. And the only other thing is I did say in the original permit that I hope to move to town. I didn't flat out say I'm never moving my business from my property. I just said at this time it's just I mean, financially, it's just not doable for us. We got 2 little girls, they're expensive, fixing to be teenagers. It's tough. So.
Do you have anything to add?
No, my biggest concern was, I understand we have the 3 limitation. That was thrown in at the very last minute by a member who I believe no longer works here. We try our hardest to. Same with the other guy earlier.
Sometimes people can't pick them up when they say they're going to. I mean, I've had people tell me, I'll be there about 5 o'clock, and it's 7:30, and I go, hey, man, I got to go to my daughter's basketball game or whatever. I can't just leave your keys in your car sitting there. I'm afraid it's going to get stolen. And they say, oh, well, my mom fell, and I'm waiting on an ambulance, or whatever it may be. Oh, me and my wife decided to get dinner. I mean, those kind of things are...
It happens a lot, which I'm sure you guys are quite aware of. Things happen, life happens. But we run into the same situation sometimes. The car comes in, it needs one thing done, it ends up being there a little longer, especially because of COVID. We can't get parts quite as fast on some things as we could before. And money's tight for people. They think that they can afford their bill. Something happens between point A, point B. They have, some unexpected expenses. We're not a bank. We can't, just let them take the car necessarily when they owe, $1,000 with hopes that they'll come back and pay. So there's times where car A was supposed to leave on Monday by 5:30, and here it is Thursday, and they haven't showed up, they haven't called us, they haven't paid their bill. Those kind of things are a little bit out of our control, which is why we have asked for more vehicles to be allowed there overnight. We did put the fence up. We will finish the fence as soon as we can get the time and the finances to do so. It needs a gate on the front. Other than that, we keep it clean. We make sure that we're trying to do everything that we can to keep you guys happy and keep everybody happy. We haven't had any complaints. Everyone that's here is here to support us. They're all neighbors within that 1,000 feet. We would really like to continue where we're at. We do hope, which is exactly what we stated the first time, exact words here, hope to someday move into town. I don't know if you've priced any commercial property. It's astronomical. Most of it well over $1 million. That kind of puts us in a situation where we simply can't afford it at this time. If I had $1 million, we'd go buy a building.
Yeah, we wouldn't be there. If we had $250,000, we wouldn't be there.
It would be nice to have some separation between work and home.
Yeah. Basically, like I said, I'm not going to stand here and lie, but there's plenty of times where I'll take a customer's car back to them that's one less car there, And
a lot of the stuff in that picture is ours. Our razors out there. We have a boat. We have a couple trailers. We've got tractors. We've got 5 vehicles. We've got 4-wheelers.
Right. And they never came out and asked, hey, which ones are yours? Which ones are going home by 6 o'clock? Or, it's supposed to be. So that's the only thing I would, hope that you guys would consider with that picture. I totally agree. It looks like, oh my gosh, that's a junkyard. But if you came out there in person, I think you would have a total different perspective on what it looks like compared to a satellite image. We really do try our best.
The conditions for recommendations for approval are up on the board there. Have you reviewed all of them?
I have reviewed them.
You agree with them?
I would like to continue the 8 to 6 o'clock, simply because we are a 15-minute drive from Leavenworth. A lot of people that live where we live work construction. They're down in Gladstone, Independence, South Kansas City. Sometimes those people don't get off until 5 o'clock on the dot, and they got to run home, pick up their wife so they can come get their car. That 6 o'clock buffer really gives us, that extra 15, 20 minutes, even if that's all it is, for people to come during that business hour period. And that's ultimately when I like to
I think that's something we can consider. And on Saturdays, the time is good?
Yeah.
I think you had originally asked for until 2 on Saturday?
Yes.
I'm okay with 8 to noon. I don't work too many Saturdays anymore. Probably 2 a month. But I don't want to say that I only want 2 a month because during the busy seasons of the year, I mean, you got to bale hay while the sun's shining. So
Friday might get work done on Saturday instead.
Well, I mean, a good instance, we bought my wife a brand new car. The driver's seat went bad because of COVID. They can't get the part in forever in a day. So Saturday's good because, you know, if the part doesn't come in on a Thursday and I'm putting the transmission in the car, I might need to wait till Saturday to fix the car.
Well, wouldn't it be just as good to make your hours Friday or Monday through Saturday and make them the same, and then you've got that leeway? I mean, what difference?
True. I would agree. That might be the best thing to do, so we don't have to do this.
You're not violating anything.
Right. Right. I agree. Other than that,
Everything seemed good?
yeah, I'm fine with that. Seems good.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant?
If we approve this, would you want that changed to Friday or Monday through Saturday, same hours, 8 to 6?
Yes, sir, I would. Yeah.
Just so we're not in that gray area there.
Well, I sure hate for somebody to drive by at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon and see me working on my dad's truck in the shop and assume that it's a customer's car instead of my father's.
Any other questions of the applicant?
I have one question. In the staff recommendations, are you okay with 6 customer vehicles?
Yes, I'm fine with that because
Okay.
after business hours close, say 6 o'clock, I mean, there's generally 1 or 2 there. I mean, I have my own stuff. You know, I got a boat in my garage. I got 3 4-wheelers in my garage. I got a 4-seater Polaris Razor, which is just as big as a pickup truck.
Well, right, and it's not always in the garage like in those pictures.
Right, in those
Almost
pictures,
everything was
there's
outside.
actually one of my tractors in my 4-wheeler is sitting out there in that line and stuff. It kind of makes it look like it's a car from that far away, you know.
And I
Remember, they're going to be looking.
No, I totally
closer at you
understand
this
that.
time.
I totally understand that, but I would just like for them to just walk up and, you know, hey,
Well,
I'm
right, we
so-and-so.
still live there. I mean, if I were to drive by and see that, I can't be like, oh, that one belongs to them, that one doesn't. There's really not a way of telling.
Right.
Just driving
Commissioners,
by.
there was a phone call. I would just like to point out, staff did contact them and ask them which vehicles were theirs, which is why staff pointed that out. So just to be clear.
I'd like to see that recording. I really would.
All right.
I might add also, I visited the site, and the fence does wonders for it because everything basically from the front of the front building back, you never see.
That was the best money we ever spent on our
Right.
property.
It gives us some privacy too, just when we're not open.
It just separates your work from your
Absolutely.
house.
That was better than the money we spent on our swimming pool.
Good. Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're wishing to speak in favor, if anybody in opposition, let's do an opposition of this request. Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this request, remember you're limited to 3 minutes. Now anyone wishing to speak in favor of this request? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this request?
My name is Bruce Roberts. I live at 22831 Millwood Road, Easton. Since this young man has moved into the neighborhood and started his business, he sets a standard that we wish probably that most businesses would follow. You don't see any trash blowing in the neighborhood. His lawn is always mowed. Does he have 3 cars once in a while? Probably yes, but how many of us have the luxury of dropping our car off today somewhere, getting it fixed, and pick it up in 10 minutes? I own a small business in this town. For the last year, I've had the same, I hate to use the word excuse, but the same answer when I try to order something. Because of coronavirus, we can't get it. Because of this, we can't get it. You know, the young man is trying to make a living. Fortunately, I don't have to follow those rules. But the 3-car rule, have you driven down Millwood Road lately? There's some places there that got junk stacked to the roof. and I've been asking about it for 35 years that I've lived on the road. If we could have businesses be the standard, I'm in agreement to all standards as long as they're enforced the same. This young man, if he's not mowing, his wife mowing. Everything's clean. There's no trash blowing throughout the neighborhood. There's no noise. And like I say, it's the type of business I like to see. It's the type of business I like to see in my neighborhood because I don't worry about it. And it's a little bit nicer having a business like this in a neighborhood because there's more common people. And by what I mean by that, more people like the people in this building, in this room, going up and down the road that know everybody, and it probably reduces the crime rate on Millwood Road because everybody else has gone to work from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, or whatever we do these days. So I think he sets a positive standard, and I appreciate it. And I'm glad he's in my neighborhood working. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request? In favor?
Scott Hughes, 22843 Millwood Road. I second what Mr. Roberts just said here, too. You drive by there anytime after 6, his kids are playing in the yard. The yard looks great. I have very rarely ever seen more than 3 cars there at one time. He did put up the fence, I don't know, a year, 2 years ago. And like I said, it looks like any residence from the street. And also what Mr. Roberts said was, there's houses out there that are just cars all over the place in their yard. They've been there for 10 years, untagged, unlicensed. They're not a business. They're resident. Nobody goes after them. He runs a great business. He's a great family man, and we all he's a huge asset to the community out there. It's about like I said, if you guys approve it, you won't regret it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request? Favor.
Yes, my name is Lori Swinford, 22528 Millwood Road. I am probably his closest neighbor. Out my kitchen window, I can see his whole property, including his shop and everything. We are very much in favor of his shop there. We have no noise issues. There's no problems at all. So we are in favor of it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request? Favor. Come on up if you want to talk.
My name's Ron Watkins, 22375 Millwood Road. And Chris and his wife are good neighbors to have. And I see no problem with him having what he has down there. It doesn't bother me a bit. He is a hard-working man. Like everybody said, he's trying to make a living. So I'm just here to support him and his family. And I hope he can get the permit and keep doing what he's doing. And I think the place, most of the time, I'd say the biggest part of the time is it's organized. More so than my yard, probably sometimes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request? In favor?
Yeah, I had something, sir.
Why not?
And another thing that's probably a positive or is not a negative, it sure hasn't helped the real estate or hurt the real estate values. There's houses on this road selling for $500,000 within a mile of the house. That if you told me 5 years ago there'd be a $500,000 home on Millwood, I'd have told you were kind of silly. But it hasn't. The 3 houses that have sold lately have all gone for asking or more, and it hasn't hurt anything whatsoever on the road.
Okay, please state your name and address again. For
Sir, I'm sorry, I'm very hearing impaired.
Your name and address, sir.
Bruce Roberts, 22831 Millwood Road.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request? Is there any additional information to be presented?
Sir.
Public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Are there any questions or comments, commissioners?
Mr. Dance, when you applied for this, how long did you ask for?
Sir, come back up then.
Are you asking how long I asked for the renewal permit? 10 years.
10 years. And we're looking at 3?
Yes, sir.
Why are we looking at 3 instead of 10?
Because he has not abided by the terms of his special use permit.
Got it. Okay.
And we usually cut them down when they were in violation.
What was your original?
But she's still continuing it, though.
Yeah, I know. What was your original?
It was for 5.
Original was 5?
Yeah, 5 years.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number DEV 21-003, special use permit for gas to auto repair, based on what we've heard here, all the evidence, people speaking for it. It sounds like it's a good business. And based on the staff recommendations, I'd like to make 2 changes to the staff recommendations. That the stop be limited to a period, go ahead and give them 5 years. They think they've learned their lesson. And the second, to change the hours from 8 to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
Second.
Tom, you second that?
I did.
Okay. Motion on the floor and a second to approve case number DEV 21-003, special use permit for gas auto repair, with staff recommendations 1 through 12, changing the time period to 5 years and changing the business hours to 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Is there any further discussion?
By changing the term of the special use permit to 5 years, are we not in effect saying, well, here's your hand slap, you go back to doing whatever you're doing? I have no problem
We
getting
can
the
still
hours
pull
that
it.
he wants.
Like I say, they're going to be watched a little closer this time, since they did violate it the first time. So, and if they're found in violation, it can be pulled.
A lot of times, too, the renewal we do is for 10 years.
Yeah, so it is less than what we
Even at-
normally do.
Even at 5, I mean, I was thinking, keep it at 3, but even at 5, you're at 50% of what we normally do for a renewal.
Right.
And it can be taken anytime
Right.
if they're in violation. And they're going to be watching them closer this time. So I suggest that they really abide by the law. And I think he must have an excellent business and does excellent work. And I hope you're looking at a time when you can move to a city or a commercial location for your business. I think you'll find out you'll like it better also, having it away from your home. Any other discussion? Everybody understands the motion? Any further discussion? Roll call vote. John Matthews?
Yes.
Terry Bukowski?
Yes.
Mark Denny?
Yes.
Alex DeMauro?
Yes.
Rocky Hempel?
Yes.
Tom Dials?
Yes, sir.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 8-0. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item on April 7th at 9 a.m. in the Leavenworth County Courthouse. Anyone wishing to be present for this meeting needs to call the Board of County Commissioners office to be put on the attendance list. Any person wishing to file a protest petition must contact the Planning and Zoning Office. Protest petitions must be filed with Leavenworth County within 2 weeks of this meeting to be valid. The protest petitions must be signed by owners of the 20% land area notification area. Good luck to you. April 7th, 9 a.m., same place. That's where the county commissioners will make the final decision on your application.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Oh.
Case number DEV 20-160, consideration amendments to the 2006 Leavenworth County zoning and subdivision regulations. Article 3, definitions, private roads. Article 18, planned zoning district. Article 27, site plan development. Request submitted by planning and zoning staff. Does require public hearing. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, this is case number DEV-20-160. This is a request to amend the zoning and subdivision regulations. As you may have noticed, there are a number of them. I will go through these briefly. Stop me if you have any questions.
Did everybody read them? Read everything? Did anybody have questions going over? Because I don't know if we have to cover every little item on this unless you had a question on any of them. I think if you covered a highlight.
Can we at least just pull them up?
Yeah, we're working.
Are these all new regulations and not?
Yes, primarily. We have amended the definition for private road. Our current zoning regulations state that private roads are not allowed. Private roads are allowed now. The Board of County Commissioners passed a policy that allows cross-access easements. Cross-access easement is, in effect, a private roadway, so we needed to amend that to indicate that cross-access easements are indeed allowed. We have also added, I'm not sure, for some reason this Adobe file is not wanting to open, but we'll keep trying. Maybe this one's going to work.
Crystal, what is a cross-access easement?
It's a private roadway. The county did not adopt private roadway standards. We have worked with the Board of County Commissioners for a very long time, it seems, on developing regulations that will allow private roads. Thank you. The Board of County Commissioners had made it clear that they wanted to allow private roadways. Staff had presented a number of standards. The Board of County Commissioners ultimately decided that property owners would need to submit signed and sealed documents from a licensed engineer for the private roadway on their property, which is why they're called cross-access easements instead of private roadways. They're essentially a driveway. They can be anything from gravel to asphalt, anything in between, as long as they're signed off on by a licensed engineer. We have seen a number of cross-access easement plats over the last couple of months.
A cross-access easement is a private road.
Correct.
Why do you got to say private streets shall be subject to crossing? Private streets shall be subject to the private street requirement. Am I misunderstanding that? It just seems redundant. I mean, I think it's great that you got this down to 2 lines, but do you need the second part?
Because we're clarifying that a cross-access easement is a private street. It's subject to the requirements of, there's a whole section of requirements for cross-access easements. So to have a private roadway, you have to abide by the regulations set forth in the cross-access easement.
You had a question what it meant. I would think other people might have a question what it means too.
Well, and that's why I said it seemed redundant, but if there's a private road and a private street, they're 2 different things. The private road is the same requirement as a private street.
So you want, okay, I see what you're saying. We will remove streets.
Move it up because I can't see it.
So because it's a private road, we will amend that to private roads shall be subject to the cross-access easement requirements, so the terminology is consistent.
So a minute ago you said there's like no stipulations on it or something.
The county does not have standards.
So why'd they do that? Why don't we require the roads to be made up to snuff for the county in case they need to be taken over?
One of the requirements, one of the stipulations of cross-access easement is that the county will not take over the roadway unless it is brought up to standard. The Board of County Commissioners wanted to see development in Leavenworth County. They believe that developers are able to determine what is best for their subdivision that they're developing, and that as long as they have an engineer who is able to design a roadway to service that.
Or essentially making it so the initial upfront cost is cheaper to get the buildings coming.
In some cases that may be true, certainly not in all.
Say it.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I have been asked by Crystal to review these documents. I was basically looking for any contradictions in terms, internal contradictions on an editorial basis. It's a pretty lengthy list of changes to the planning and zoning regulations. I think they're well drafted. With respect to the issue of private roads, I know that that is an issue that this commission has discussed in the past. It's certainly an issue that the Board of County Commissioners has discussed. If I could offer a suggestion, that's certainly a topic that you may wish to bring up on the 24th. The issue of the development of a private road with the specter of future assumption of control of that road and maintenance of that road and repair of that road by the county is always out there. So I think it might be a germane and timely topic to bring up on the 24th. I'm just tossing that. It's the elephant in the room that needs to be discussed.
We'll put it on the agenda for that meeting.
David, in Article 18, there's a couple of instances where, and this may be that it's just boilerplate. So let's go to, if I look at, say we're talking section 4.1, the planned commercial district. This is on page 54 and 55 in the document. It says,
you put it up on the
land developed for retail, shopping, office, or hotel purposes. And then under use regulations, the first regulation under there says farming. Now, is that just a standard boilerplate thing that gets cut and pasted into all these, or?
It is in all of them, so I'm assuming that's right. Is that correct?
Yes, so the county cannot regulate agriculture. I'm sure Mr. Van Peers can speak more
eloquently. Even in an area that is designated for retail, shopping, office, or hotels?
Correct.
Okay. Answers my question.
Commissioner Dials, I will be the first to admit regulatory provisions are rarely written in a format that make for enjoyable reading, or quite frankly, sometimes even comprehensive.
I did 38 months in the Pentagon. I've read this stuff for years, so we're good.
So I will just offer that. I think a great deal of time has been put in this. I think it was productive. Certainly, if you don't wish to adopt these this evening, that's your prerogative, but I do wish you to go through them, read in the full context. I think it's a well-written, comprehensive document. I'm not saying it's perfect, and certainly we have until the time of adoption by the Board of County Commissioners to continue to review it. But despite the arcane language, despite the complexity that is inherent in drafting and formulation of regulatory language, I think all in all it's a well-written document. I'll just offer that thought.
Mr. Van Perry's, I was just trying to save a couple of small trees. We're good.
Those trees have met their fate.
Well, and Tom's point,
The tornado
Tom's
violation.
got a good point. I was on the Delaware Township board, and I read the Kansas regulations, and by the time I finished, I knew that they were written by separate people in separate rooms, and part of them were monkeys, and they didn't talk to each other. Regulations should be written so that Joe Sixpack, or us guys even up here, can understand them. And that's all I'm saying. Dumb it down.
With all due respect, Commissioner, I've done my best to make these to make these clear and coherent. Again, as far as the farming is, if you own a 40-acre farm in the middle of the County Road 1 zoning districts, we cannot stop you from farming that land. That's what this is saying.
Then say that.
I got it.
We shouldn't have David explain it to us every time.
Commissioner Markowski, I totally agree with you, but we live in a time when I'll use a famous example by an attorney who's also a former president, but when we can debate what the meaning of the word is, that's why we have these types of regulations.
Right. I have all you guys look at a real estate contract sometime.
Oh, yeah.
When I started the business, it was one letter size page. Now it's 16, and addendums on top of it. And there's almost that many more addendums.
What Crystal was trying to say,
and it says exactly the same thing in the long run.
Nothing in your training prepared you to deal with Markowski
You
and me,
know why
right?
it's not 18 pages?
Excuse me?
You know why it's not 18 pages?
Why?
The attorney got tired.
Got tired. Probably made him into addendums.
The attorney got paid and left before the last 2 pages.
Anyway, Crystal, is there anything in here that is kind of irregular than what we would expect in regulations like this?
So I guess I'd like to point out a few things. One, we did try to adopt as much as we could, by and large, the City of Tonganoxie zoning and subdivision regulations. This County Road 1 corridor is obviously directly abutting Tonganoxie. So whenever we could, we wanted to make sure that those regulations matched up so that in the event that down the road something were to be annexed, that it wouldn't be working with competing regulations. That is not always exactly the case. And there were a couple of cases where we had to make a couple of small changes in order to make it work. I don't think there's anything that's going to be revolutionary by any stretch of the imagination. So in the zoning districts, as far as front yard setbacks, side setbacks, road frontage, that sort of stuff, that's all from the City of Tonganoxie's regulations. We do have, under the site plan requirements, we currently have site plan requirements in our zoning and subdivision regulations. These site plan requirements apply to planned districts, not just regular districts, but planned districts. They are substantially more comprehensive. They are much clearer. I think that they provide a really great foundation to develop a corridor that is attractive and useful. And then the same thing can be said for the performance standards. We have obviously introduced low density, medium density, high density, mixed use district, planned commercial, and planned industrial. We do clarify that planned industrial is to be light and medium industrial. That is not meant to be heavy industrial, so that limits some of the types of uses that can be found. The site plan contents, again, I think it's comprehensive, to say the least. I did find today, when I was re-reviewing this, a couple of small changes that I wanted to propose. I think actually just one. I noticed under our road classification, so...
Bring it up, please.
What page is that, Chris?
Page 17. Under local road, we have a minimum driveway requirement, spacing requirement of 125 feet. That doesn't really work very well when some of your lots are only required to have 60 feet of road frontage, so we need to change that to a minimum requirement, and this is only on local roadways of 60 feet, is what my proposal would be. Other than that, I don't see any changes that need to be made. Certainly I'm open to any changes that you all see. I will be the first to admit that, as time goes on and we begin to get development in the corridor, these regulations may need to be amended. These are regulations in a perfect world.
Moving document just like all the other ones.
Yes.
Change happens and we have to change with it.
Have the county commissioner seen this document?
They've been provided with this document. I have not received any communication. They've been provided with the document. I have not received any communication from them.
Well, I've read through it, and I'll tell you, I'm not prepared without going in depth a little farther and take the comprehensive plan to vote one way or another on this document. And I think it should be
discussed.
I think it should be discussed, and when we're at the meeting with the county commissioners the 24th, ask their opinion about it and see what they like, because we're to work together as a team versus one the other. We might want this change, they might want that change. Let's work together as a team and talk it out, what's best for Leavenworth County.
Commissioners, I can certainly speak to the Board of County Commissioners regarding, I think that would need to be a separate work session if I'm just going to be completely honest with you. This is a lot to go over. The comprehensive plan is a lot to go over. So I try to pack a lot.
I read it over, I actually probably read it over close to 3 times, and I know 2 times for sure, and I went over it a 3rd time and kind of got the highlights of it. And actually it all makes sense. I mean, if you've ever looked at documents for subdivisions or government regulations, it looks very, very much like every other one does. It is a little more extensive than what I think Leavenworth County is kind of used to, but we want that area to be that way. I mean, that area is going to, you figure it's going to be a showcase of our county. That's why that exit, that I-70 exit came there to bring industry and commercial to our area, and I think that's what we need to have, something there that we can, that is going to be quality and good. I'm okay passing it tonight because, and it does go to the county commissioners, and if they're not happy with it, they can send it back to us or go for further discussion.
I think we need to meet with them. There's no reason why we can't meet with them. This is a big change, and I think we need more than one set of opinions in here to.
Well, there will be. I mean, it'll go to them, and if
so then it gets kicked back 2 or 3 times.
Well, but we'll at least give them. I mean, do you have concerns about anything?
Yes, because I haven't had enough time really to go over and compare it against the actual comprehensive plan, and it's in my area close to Tonganoxie.
Well, this is.
And I haven't had a chance to compare it against Tonganoxie subdivision regulations either.
Well,
although I vote for all of Leavenworth County, still, I'd like to review Tonganoxie's subdivision regulations again and see if that's what we modeled after, if that's exactly what it is.
Well, while we continue with this, because that's where we are at, unless anybody else has any other comments on it, and then see where we go with that. Okay. Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item upon recognition will give you a name and address. Time to begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. The public comment portion of this hearing is now open. We'll hear from individuals present wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this request. You do have 3 minutes.
Sherry Grogan, 16635 Leavenworth Road. I'm also the president of Rural Leavenworth, Inc. Want to recognize the hard work that's gone into this. These are important changes, and so I wanted to provide some comments. Generally speaking, this looks pretty good. Just a couple things. The significance of moving from the 2 or more properties to the 3 or more properties on the definition of the private road. Didn't quite understand that. I was looking for the cross-access easement requirements on the website. I couldn't find that, so I don't have a lot to add. There, I do vaguely remember them being discussed not too long ago. I just couldn't find them to compare what the implications were of trying to simplify the definition. And so that. I like the fact that these height requirements on the corridor or in these categories is limited to 2.5 or 3. stories, depending on which category we're talking about. So it kind of seems like it would be a nice fit in that corridor. And we sent this out to get comments to the other board members as well as members, and didn't really get a lot of feedback. The one thing that we did get is that the comment in the guidelines about when there is sewer and water versus not. It looks like the main difference is the frontage requirement. So we just want to make sure that that is the only difference as far as when that is specified in the requirements. And then one other thing that looked a little bit odd is in the high density, where it's like 29, up to 29 units per acre, that the accessory building on less than 2.5 is still as high as the percentage of 2.5. That just kind of seems like if we're talking about, 29 units per acre, that the accessory building could be on there as well. So you might want to look at that. And then the assumption is if somebody wants to build, let's say, a 6-story hotel, that would go then to the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's the process that if somebody wanted to go different than the requirements. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. I'm assuming there's nobody else that wants to talk because I don't see anybody. So,
The ghost.
Is there any additional information to be presented?
No, sir, there's not.
Then the public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Are any questions or commissioners? If someone did want to do a hotel like that, is that correct that they would have to do a variance?
Well, there is, I do want to clarify that 2.5 and 3, not acres, Crystal, stories. That is for the residential district. For the, get there. So for the planned industrial district, you could have up to a 50-foot building, which would be more than 3 stories. So that's in the industrial district. And the same can be said for the planned mixed use, which the planned mixed use is where you expect
This would be the hotel.
to see a
Industrial
hotel.
wouldn't be a hotel, would it?
Right, I'm just saying that those two districts have slightly higher limitations. However, if somebody wanted to exceed those limitations, yes, they have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to be granted.
But it says exceed 3 stories or 50 foot high.
Right,
No
so
building shall exceed 3 stories.
yes, so oftentimes a 3-story building will be 35 feet. That's pretty typical, so I just want to clarify, while it may only be 3 stories, because of the type of business or building that we're talking about, those stories may be bigger than an average story. So the height is greater than in those other districts. So just to clarify.
Good.
Crystal, what Ms. Grogan was talking about with the accessory buildings on the board, where is that? I'm not.
So it's in every zoning district, and that is a standard requirement that it's 2.5% of the total land area. So if you have, a 900 square foot lot, your accessory building cannot be more than 2.5%, which is obviously a very small accessory building. So that number changes based upon the lot size.
Okay.
But anything under 2.51 acres is limited to an accessory building of 2.5%.
So, really, by definition, they're not going to be able to have them.
You might be able to have like a small shed, like a 100 square foot shed or something along those
very,
lines.
very small.
But yes, in some of those
To me,
zoning,
I wouldn't consider that an accessory building. I'd consider it a Walmart.
our zoning regulations would consider it an accessory building.
Okay. But
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't think her her concerns would really, by definition, your concerns are going to be taken care of, I would think.
Any other questions or
I
comments?
just have one last comment. Crystal, don't take my criticism about dumbing it down or anything as a complaint. I think you're doing a great job.
No
And it's
worries.
not an easy job, I know.
No offense taken, Commissioner. None.
All right, if there are any comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Given that we would like to discuss it, or some of us would like to discuss it directly with county commissioners, as far as official action goes here tonight, should that just be tabled then and brought back up on the 24th for discussion?
Well, you don't want to do it on the 24th,
No,
so it'll have
Commissioners,
to be another meeting day.
Yeah, and to be just really honest with you, we currently have 13 cases scheduled for April. I don't think any of you probably want this to be on April's Planning Commission, and that it wouldn't give time to meet with the Board of County Commissioners anyway. If you are considering tabling this at this point, the earliest date that I would recommend you consider tabling it to is the May meeting. That may give us time to schedule a second. So that would be the May 12th meeting.
This has been going on for I don't know how long.
A long time.
Long time. And I don't know if anything is proposed out in that area or not, but I think this looks pretty good to me. And is it always going to be 100% perfect, going to cover everything? Probably not, just like our rules and regs don't now. But we have to start somewhere. And, gosh, I'll make the motion. We approve case number DEV 20-160, staff recommendation changing the 2AE to 60 feet on the minimum street frontage required for a driveway. That's my motion.
Second.
Who seconded it?
Sorry.
A motion on the floor to approve case number DEV 20-160 as written, with the one change of changing 2AE to 60 foot for minimum street frontage required for driveway. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote. Members present. John Matthews.
Yes.
Terry Bukowski.
Yes.
Mark Denny.
Yes.
Alex Demaro.
I want to vote no on it because I've talked about it a bunch, and I don't think anybody's in agreement on it, really, in all honesty, with the roads and everything. I do think it would have been a good idea a long time ago to get together and talk about it and come to an agreement and go from there.
So you're voting no?
Correct.
You voted no?
That is correct.
Rocky Hempel.
No.
And the reasoning?
Reason is you got 20-plus pages. I haven't been able to thoroughly go through it to make a determination if it's right. And I think I'd like to have the county commissioners go through it also before we act on it.
Okay. And they are going to go through it before it's acted upon. Tom Dials.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sorry. The mask, it is hard to hear. Jeff Spink.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 6-2. The Board of County Commissioners considered this item 9 a.m. on April 7th, the Leavenworth County Courthouse. Anyone wishing to be present for this meeting needs to call the Board of County Commissioners office to be put on the attendance list. So, I do agree with Rocky on one thing. When we have something that big, can we have that earlier than just like 3 or 4 days before, 5 days before the meeting? Because it is a lot to read, and like I say, I took part of my nice weekend to read this, which I would have loved to have been doing something else, but I figured if I didn't read it, then I would probably not get it done. So if we could get something like that long and that detailed earlier, that would sure be a lot
Staff
easier
can do
for
their
all.
best, Commissioner.
Excuse me?
Staff will do their best, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anything else?
No, sir.
We're adjourned.